Okay, I'm a little bit nervous today because I'm very starstruck. So, very warm welcome to all of you at Temasek Shophouse here today, and thank you for being here with us for this special edition of Ecosperity Conversations with Dr. Sylvia Earle. Dr. Sylvia Earle is a legendary oceanographer with an infectious passion for the ocean and a staggering number of achievements to substantiate it. As many of you may already know, Dr. Sylvia is the founder of several NGOs such as Mission Blue, Sea Alliance, and Deep Ocean Exploration and Research. On top of being an accomplished scientist and a National Geographic Explorer in residence, she was also the first female chief scientist of the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. She was also named by Time magazine as their first hero for the planet in 1998. So now you know why I'm starstruck. So here today, she's here to share her passion for the deep blue sea and also to inspire us about saving the ocean. Dr. Sylvia Earle just came here today from cleaning up the beach at East Coast Park, so I don't know where she gets the energy to do this talk for us as well. So please join me in a very hearty welcome for Dr. Sylvia Earle.
Thank you for the honor of being able to be here on an island, in a city, in a country, Singapore, in the Pacific Ocean. It's the largest, oldest, deepest blue part of the planet. A place that really warrants our respect and our exploration. This is a time as never before, maybe as never again, for us to use our mighty powers of new technologies to be able to see what certainly wasn't possible for me to see when I was a child. The kids of today are really armed with superpowers of knowing what no one could know until, you know, the latter part of the 20th century and now moving into the 21st. This image taken 50 years ago. That image of us from high in the sky, to realize the world is blue. And the Pacific, the bluest, deepest, widest, oldest part of the ocean. Some people want to go to Mars. I think, yes, let them go. The more the better. Setting up housekeeping on Mars is probably possible, but not for 7 billion of us. This is home. And we have a chance right now, armed with knowing what we could not know before, what it's going to take all the ingredients that currently exist, all preceding history, getting us to this point in time where we can breathe the air. Can't do that on Mars. Can't do that on the moon. We've got this fabric of life that has taken billions of years to put into place. It's taking us a few decades to make deep inroads into that fabric of life. But now we know why it matters, why the ocean matters. Of course, it starts with the water, but it isn't just the rocks. It isn't just the water. It's life in the ocean that makes our existence possible. And we're all, in some ways, related. Now we know the genetics of life, that we have DNA coursing through our bodies, a lot of it similar to what these little creatures in the sea have. The great miracle is that with the common chemistry of life, there's also this capacity for infinite diversity. So I look at you. Every one of you has a different face, different fingerprints, different DNA. I look at them, and it's the same thing. They're all different. And yet, with a common connectivity that holds us together. It's a miracle, the two big miracles of life I think of it as a scientist, the fact that there is such continuity, the chemistry of life, but at the same time, the great diversity of life. And to realize, as never before, we have the gift of knowing about the microbes, the little guys that hold the world together, that hold us together. We didn't know about these things until right about now, certainly not when I was a child or any time in the past. The chemistry of Earth is governed by the chemistry of life. We can see it now as never before. And to realize that those food chains in the light, in the sea, photosynthesis that powers the phytoplankton, that powers the zooplankton that is consumed by the fish, and now they're consuming a lot of other things owing to our existence, things we're putting into the ocean that didn't exist before, but there they are. When I go diving today, it's not just an ocean filled with life, it's also an ocean filled with death. Things we are putting into the ocean that are compromising not just critters in the sea, it's really affecting us as well. But the good news is, now we know. And I love diving in the food chains in the ocean. I try not to become a part of the food chains in the ocean. So far, so good. As you may know, if you've been to the Lido Center and seen the Elysium expeditions, the 3 expeditions, Michael Olive is here somewhere, taking pictures, there he is. The celebration of the last 10 years, 3 big expeditions to get acquainted with those big toothy creatures in the ocean that we need to look at with dignity and respect. I mean, their populations are down by 90%, but we still have them, and they still have us to make decisions that will inspire caring, not just for the sharks and the world they live in, polar areas that are feeling the crunch of what we are putting into the atmosphere, what we're putting into the ocean. If you haven't been to the Lido Center and checked out the exhibition, the great images that you'll see and share in the expeditions, please don't miss out. It'll be there for the next few weeks. We share space with other societies, other civilizations, if you will, our fellow mammals in the sea that now we're beginning to look at with new appreciation. We used to think of them primarily as pounds of meat, barrels of oil, but we're now beginning to see them with new eyes and new respect. And guess what? There are more whales in the ocean today because we've stopped killing them for the most part. There need to be more sharks in the future than there are today, but we have to stop killing them if in fact there are to be, if there is to be a kind of recovery such as we know is possible through actions we can take. But we have to hurry. Tuna, swordfish, look down the long list of creatures that we have consumed in excess in my lifetime. We have a choice right now to make a place for them in the planet that we share, because we need them. We need the chemistry of the ocean that is shaped by life in the sea. It shapes our life support system, the source of oxygen, the nitrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, the cycles of life that keep us alive. Fish have faces too. I have come to see that with thousands of hours underwater, getting to see that everyone is different. They have personality. They have a social structure. They are worthy of our respect. And yes, they do taste good, some of them. And some of them we have just begun to know. And again, as individuals, every whale shark has spots that are unique to that particular animal. And if you take a photograph at a certain place on a whale shark, you can submit it to Whale Shark Central, where they can look at the pattern of spots and tell you not just what it is, they can tell you who it is, as the database for whale sharks is growing around the world, and thereby track where they go. It isn't just mammals and fish, it's every creature is distinctive they all have, if not faces or spots, they all have their distinctive DNA fingerprint. I am so thrilled, as you should be too, to be alive now, early in the 21st century, knowing what is now possible to know, that the smartest people who ever lived, even 10 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, they could not know. We have the technology, and you here in Singapore are leaders in the technology, in the science of knowing that leads to caring. And that caring leads to hope. Maybe we can figure it out in the next 10 years, about the time that climate scientists are giving us to figure it out. What can we do now on our watch? Through increased technology, increased exploration, increased science, increased caring. So for me, I've been fortunate, as you are, to come along now. I've had the joy of being able to have the gift of time underwater. For most people, being able to spend an hour, as much as 100 feet beneath the surface, is a gift, because we don't have gills. And holding our breath, we can't go far or stay long. But harnessing scuba, harnessing rebreathers, being able to have underwater laboratories. I've had the joy of spending time in 10 different underwater, not different laboratories, but 10 different occasions of living underwater. And look, I'm not Superman. If I can do this, anybody can do this. Almost anybody. But it takes just the will to dive in. My mother waited until she was 81 to take the plunge. So she would say, if she were here, if you're 81, don't wait any longer. But most of you have plenty of time to do what, if you haven't already done, go see the splendor that is out there in your backyard, your blue backyard. I'm confident that many of you already have. But not too many of you have wrapped yourself in a metal suit to go 1,000 feet, 400 meters, a little bit more than 1,000 feet, as I had a chance to do back in 1979, 10 years after the first footprints were on the moon, and to be able to work with engineers, to develop new technologies, to package humans, to go down into the ocean, not just to 1,000 feet, how about 1,000 meters? To be able to get into a little submarine so simple that even a scientist can drive it. I mean, that's got to be the way. It's a diving suit, but it's something that a kid could learn how to pilot. To have something instinctive and safe. People get into cars thinking that it's safe. Well, I'd rather be in a submarine, thank you. Traffic is dangerous. Underwater, you have to keep from bumping into the fish, but they're not going to bump into you. I've had the pleasure of trying out, so far, more than 30 different kinds of submarines. So I have a bit of a perspective on what works and what we could improve upon for access to the sea. First thing is you've got to protect yourself. Well, first thing is you've got to be able to breathe. You have to have a life support system. Astronauts know that, going high in the sky. Those of us who go deep in the sea, and those of us who aspire to stay longer than just a few minutes. Engineers are great at constructing solutions to how do we get down in the ocean, either personally, which I love, or vicariously, which I also love. China is currently really leading the world with deep diving submersibles. This is the Sea Dragon. It goes to 7,000 meters. The average depth of the ocean is 4,000 meters. How deep can you go holding your breath? How deep can you go with scuba? The ocean is that part of the planet, not at the surface, not at the bottom, but that middle part that is largely unknown, unexplored, but there for us to try to understand and to care for it. I love one-person submarines. Submarines I can drive myself. You should love them too. Two-person submarines, three-person submarines, 10-person submarines, whatever it takes to get out there, to get down there. And as I hope we'll have a chance to discuss the idea of building submarines that really benefit from now decades of trying this, trying that, and really coming up with the best solutions we now have to use acrylic spheres to go 1,000 meters. It's being done with submarines that are being used now for tourism. But we need submersibles that can be used by anybody in this room, by scientists, of course, by explorers, of course, but to be able to use the technologies of the sort that have been developed to go to the deepest part of the ocean. The little company that I started, that my daughter and son-in-law, who are in the back of the room, have managed over the last 25 years, developed the manipulator that has gone to the deepest part of the ocean with James Cameron in his Deep Sea Challenge, one of 3 expeditions to go 11,000 meters beneath the sea. And camera technology, packaging systems to go deep. Right now, we're looking at a time when the ocean is on the verge of enhanced exploitation, deep sea mining. Before we've even begun to explore, exploiting places we don't even know the names of the creatures who live in association with what's down there. Little submersibles that can go to 1,000 meters is a great start. And I hope that in collaboration with institutions here in Singapore to explore the Pacific Ocean and ultimately to go deep, deeper, deepest, down where the manganese nodules, which are living rocks formed by bacteria. Unfortunately, they also contain minerals that people now want to use for things like cell phones and battery-powered cars. It's possible to take from the deep sea, but it's a choice. We don't have to do that yet, maybe never, as we come up with clever solutions about how to power our civilization without the use of the minerals, the metals and such that are in the deep sea. Right now, exploration is continuing, and I really love being able to share this little video with you, little piece of what it's like at a depth of about 5,000 meters in the Pacific, not close to Hawaii, but in the Clarion-Clipperton zone, where scientists from the University of Hawaii. Oh, I want to turn off the sound, please. No sound, although it sounds good. Glub, glub. That's what it looks like if you're out there. This is through the cameras of a remotely operated system that Deep Ocean Exploration and Research, the same little venture that builds little submarines like the 2-person, 3-person Deep Hope submarines. We need all of the tools. We need ROVs, we need AUVs. We certainly need to take the human brain, your brains, your minds, your passion into the ocean to get to know who lives there and to get to find out who they are. How do their lives impact ours, and how is what we're doing here on the surface impacting theirs? We're giving away big chunks of the deep sea before we've even looked at them for the first time. This is not a good plan. We need to insist that exploration needs to precede exploitation, and maybe we'll choose to think the greatest thing that we're taking from the ocean is not rocks, not fish, not oil and gas even, although that's served us well over many years. The most important thing that we extract from the ocean is our existence. We live because the ocean is alive. And now it's our turn to give back to the ocean, take care of it, explore it, know what we can get away with, know what we need to stop doing, know what we need to start doing in terms of exploring the deep sea. So, I met this bird who lives sometimes on land, mostly flying over the Pacific Ocean. She has a name. She has a mate. She has a face. Her name, at least what people call her, is Wisdom. She is an albatross, of course, if you can see, move away. A lace-on albatross who began to fly at about the same time I was beginning to learn how to dive in the 1950s. What she has seen in her lifetime, what I've seen in mine, are on a parallel track. I mean, she's seen the plastics come into the ocean. She's seen fewer squid. She has seen things that no human has seen, traveling over thousands of miles in a single year to bring back groceries for the single chick of the year. But I've seen things she not only has not, but could not. I know things that no bird, no elephant, no whale, no creature, however smart, other than humans, could know. We know why there are fewer squid. We know what that plastic stuff is. We know that the planet is warming. We know that we're the cause of the accelerated warming, the accelerated changes that are not only bad for birds, bad for fish and squid, are bad for us. We have a chance right now, armed with knowledge, and working with leaders around the world, as well as working with individuals, communities, scientists, poets, artists, anyone, everyone, teachers, kids, to be able to take action. This President of the United States, George W. Bush, was an unlikely hero for the environment, but through a stroke of his pen, protected the waters around where Wisdom, the albatross, lives. The biggest marine protected area on the planet at the time. But along comes another president of my country, Barack Obama, and scaled it up, quadrupled the size of that marine protected area around the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. And beyond that, nations around the world came together to protect even a larger area around the Ross Sea in Antarctica. The president of Palau, Tommy Rumingasau, who's a diver dude as well as being president, protected 80% of the entire exclusive economic zone around his little island country with the support of his people. It is a big blue hope spot. And others. I had a chance to go with the president of Chile in January of this past year to Antarctica. There's a reason for hope. There, in the high seas, around every country with a coastline, such as this country, was President Sebastián Piñera, who uttered these words. I'm so glad it was a president of a country who did so. Not a conservationist, not a scientist, although he is a diver and a pilot. He said, this is the first time in history that we know the magnitude of the problems we face with the planet. It's the last time that we'll be able to do something about it. So it could be scary, it could be cause for doom and gloom, and it could be cause for exhilaration, it could be cause for hope. We have a chance to save Antarctica. We have a chance to restore the populations of the little fish called orange Roughy that lives to be older than humans. We can protect the krill. We have a choice. Go get them, turn them into food for whatever it is we want to turn them into food for, cattle and chickens and fish, or we can think of them as a cornerstone of the carbon cycle affecting climate globally. We have a chance to make choices. And I love being here in this country with you, with the talented people who are here, with the spirit that's here, with the look to the future that I see all around in terms of our engineering capability. And can we look at ourselves and think about the future of the rest of life on Earth? Go to the Lido Center and see the story of the polar bears who will be with us or not by the end of the century, depending on what we do or fail to do. And it isn't just about polar bears. There's not room for them and us. Something's really wrong with the planet. So, hope spots. An idea that really got going about 10 years ago, with a thought that if we can enlist people, champions, communities around the world to step up and nominate places that they know, that they love, that they care about, working with the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and volunteer scientists who are giving their time to look at applications that come in. Now, 123 places have been applied for around the world, and this committee of experts giving advice and helping to shape hope places, places of hope, a network of hope around the world. If enough people, enough places come together, you know, you can draw lines on a map. You can say this place is a park. But if you don't have people with a will to really take it to heart and do what it takes to protect the natural systems, land and sea, all the lines on the map won't do any good. We have to have people who care. And that's what the concept of the Hope Spots is meant to do. To provide a go-to place to take data, images, to take stories, success stories, or problems and share them globally, to provide a framework that makes that possible. And the tools, those little submarines that we aspire to build, and why not have them based here in Singapore to go deep, I mean like deep, deep in the ocean. It's where, as Jesse Ossobel, who was the pioneering voice behind the Census of Marine Life, a 10-year study, kind of the bottom line after all that work, looking all over the world, who lives in the ocean, how long, you know, what is the past, what's the present, what's the future going to be? The bottom line is the deeper we go, the less we know, but the more new discoveries we find. It's not good enough to nibble around at the surface of the ocean and think we've got the answers. We have to harness the capability we've got as clever humans, as engineers, as curious individuals, to want to go and explore the ocean and then bring back the news and use it to protect the only place in the universe that will ever be our real home. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sylvia Earle. If you would just take a seat here. This is your hot spot, and this is mine.
Hot spot.
Hope spot.
Hope spot. Blue spot.
Okay. Blue spot. See, I'm in blue today as well, and I can see many of you here in the audience are too. Okay, I'm just going to open up to the audience for questions soon, but I've got a burning question here for you, just to kickstart this whole Q&A session. So we know that sustainability is becoming increasingly important to businesses around the world, across all industries, and that companies have got a responsibility towards climate action. So in your opinion, what is the single thing we can do as a company to move the needle on eco-sustainability?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that question. All of us, as individuals, as society, as civilization, companies, countries, we're getting a free ride from nature. We have not accounted for the cost of our prosperity. Until right about now. Because right about now, we're seeing that what we take from nature is not free. I got into trouble a little bit as chief scientist at NOAA because I said to my esteemed colleagues in fisheries that you don't, a fish swimming in the ocean has a zero accounting base. It's only when it's dead, you put a dollar sign on it. And a fish alive has to have value. Air has to have value. We treat it as if it's always been there, will always be there, no matter what we do to the air or to the water or to the fish in the sea. I think there has to be a new way of accounting for what we take from the natural world, and to give back and to appreciate that whether it's oil or gas or minerals or trees or whatever, we did not plant that 1,000-year-old tree. So we can't account for the cost of what it took to make it, but we know how to sell the goods once we cut it down. And I think it's just that new way of thinking. The other piece is that you cannot have a prosperous civilization if the natural world is not also prosperous. One of my heroes in the US government years ago, Tim Wirth, made the comment that the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. I mean, it's not the other way around. It's that everything that we value has a beginning somewhere in nature, including, like, our existence. So we need, now, with our numbers at 7, almost 8 billion people, we're looking at, for the first time, the limits of what we can extract and still have a planet that works in our favor. Businesses have a magnified, not only impact, but also magnified opportunity to shape the way they do business, the way they market their products, the way they influence people, and people have a magnified influence on the corporations because of the choices we make. Make better choices about what we wear, what we eat, how we live, the corporations will follow.
Yes, that's really good advice, and I think maybe we should start practicing accountability in a very different way, right?
Yes.
And that could start in schools even, right? What we put a value on.
Where did this come from, whatever it is? And just track it back. And even if you get to that step where you appreciate it, that you value it, it might influence the way you think going forward. And we need to be mindful of that we're here by the leave of nature. That the laws of nature in the end will govern the outcome.
Yes. So there are a lot of conversations around plastics, when it comes to marine conservation. Is this really the main problem? And if not, what are the real problems that we should be focusing on?
Another loaded question. Well, what we're putting into the ocean is one big category of, and until the middle of the 20th century, when I was a kid, plastics basically didn't exist. Now they're everywhere. They're in the air we breathe, the beer you drink, in the water you drink. You can't escape the microplastics that are now just so ubiquitous. And it's happened in decades, decades. We're not talking millions of years. We're talking, I'm a witness, you're a witness. So that is a problem. What we're taking out of the ocean is another big problem. Losing, again, in decades, 90% of the sharks. The bluefin tuna in the Pacific, according to the latest best scientific analysis, Barbara Block, who makes it her business to know what the tuna are up to. It's less than 3% of the bluefins remain from what prospered there in the 1970s. We're really good at finding, catching, killing,
Yes.
marketing, eating them. We've got to do a better job of caring for their realm and reducing how much we take, or there won't be any anymore. And whether you like them on your plate or like them swimming in the ocean, the best thing going for us is knowing what's happening. So the biggest problem, it's of course what we're putting into the ocean, into the atmosphere, that's causing acidification of the ocean, changing the chemistry. And yes, what we're taking out, which is also changing the carbon cycle, changing the chemistry of the ocean, and ultimately back to us with oxygen that we need and the fish need. Anyway, the biggest problem is ignorance. I think this is an exceptional audience of people who know a lot more and probably care a lot more than you could say is generally true of the world population at large, who don't know what you know. And you can't care if you don't know. So ignorance has gotten us largely into the problems that we now face, and it's knowledge that is going to save us, if anything will.
Thank you for that. So I just want to open this time up for the audience to ask some burning questions that they may have for you. So anyone, any questions?
I guess one of the questions I have is, where do you think the first step would be in making either the science digestible to actually be put into the accounting so that businesses can actually put a value on the environment and their impact?
Big question. Would you like to repeat the question for the people who can't hear?
Okay, I'll try. So the question, if I'm hearing correctly, is what's the science behind putting together an accounting system for companies so that they can actually practice putting a value to taking things from the environment?
Do we need to put more of a focus on making science digestible by economics, or do we need to do maybe through laws to make businesses actually come to the science in the first place?
Right. So you know, so again, very long, but it's similar to what I just said. So, but I think she's talking about whether we can make the science digestible for businesses. So, is there a solution to that?
Well, there's no straight answer that fits all issues, but there's an ethic of caring, and there is just the awareness of the power that individual companies have, whether it's small family business or a big corporation. It's respect for the reality that we're running out of time to fix the problems that we now have. And if your prosperity means anything to you, if your kids mean anything, the world that they're growing up in, think about the impact that you're having and use whatever power you have to give back, for one thing. Give back and be mindful of the real cost, not just what you pay, but what the real cost is of the materials that you use to foster your prosperity. Be mindful, be aware, and also be excited about the chance you have to make a difference and celebrate what you're doing. If you make a choice that seems like a hard economic choice, if you point out that you're giving back or you offset your carbon, or if you realize that you have to take trees for this, that you're planting trees or you're saving a place elsewhere, and then make it known what you're doing. There are corporations that are really mindful of this and are moving in the right direction. I mean, I am so pleased to have an association with Rawlings. You wouldn't think on the surface of things that a company that is dedicated to fine watches would be making a big difference for conservation or for celebrating excellence in human endeavors, but there they are. And I do think that people are more attracted to the companies that are socially responsible and are giving back. And that does affect the bottom line. You go to where those who are building things with attention to the use of materials, to the use of water, to the use of space more efficiently. The corporations that are dedicated to feeding people. We can do a lot better if we market, a different kind of approach to what we eat. I mean, we don't have to eat so many animals. In fact, if we continue to do so, we're going to continue to exacerbate the problems. To feed a lot of people, we need to focus more on a plant-based diet and make it really delicious, really attractive, good for you, good for the planet. It's marketing.
Yeah.
So corporations can do have a powerful role in influencing proper or effective, positive human behavior through marketing expertise. And whether it's the products that we use every day, just be mindful of how we can all work together to lighten the pressure we put on the planet.
I think some companies are probably more advanced and more sophisticated than the other companies, but that's definitely a growing trend and awareness to
making
develop
money
matrix and
is relatively simple compared to making a difference. But there's no reason why not only can you not do both, but if you become recognized as a company that is really setting out to give back, it's likely to have a positive effect on your bottom line. People will come to you because you're doing the right thing and they want to be associated and not associated with those who are going in the other direction.
Definitely.
You get a reputation as a company just as you can as an individual.
Yes. Another question? Yes.
Hi, Dr. Earle. Thank you for sharing your life's work and your life force. I really appreciate it. I have a question, but actually I love the previous question, and I just want to jump in very quickly that I think in addition to that, it's also a lot about reimagining metrics and assessment frameworks for companies to actually put a number to that value. I have a lot to say, especially in the Singaporean context, in terms of our economics education. The variety of models we learn, I think, could be enhanced. But anyway, my question for you actually is really lynching onto the main pattern that came out in your entire storytelling session, which is caring. I think you mentioned this a lot. If we had a word cloud, it would be the biggest word. And you paired it a lot with tech, which is, I think, right on the money. But the thing is, I believe we are a privileged lot in this room. We have the cognitive empathy to understand what you're saying and know why we should care. But there are 7 billion people on this planet, and my question is, how do we communicate beyond the bubble to really push the needle in an ecosystemic way so that people on the ground, no matter what their level, no matter what they're doing, can find a way to contribute to these hope spots that you are building?
So how do we make more people care more and know more?
Well, that's a very big issue, and I seek answers from you. How do we do that? It's a question that we're struggling with. How do we reach people, even though the knowledge is there? It's not in the minds and hearts of everyone. There are a lot of people who don't have cell phones, don't have computers, don't have even access to a library of books. And yet they're part of this network of life that we need to treat with dignity and respect and do our utmost to take them into account, whoever they are, wherever they are. It's the biggest challenge of our time, I think. It's the ignorance issue. We realize that maybe it's a matter of critical mass, getting enough people moving in the right direction so that it becomes ethically considered to be the right thing to do, now that we know. You can't fault those 50 or 100 or 1,000 years ago for doing in ignorance what it took to make a living. It's only in the 1980s that globally enough people started to understand that whales have a value alive that transcend what we can extract from them as dead animals. We're beginning to see that even if you think of them in terms of dollar value, that tourism for tigers may save tigers. Tourism, ultimately for whale sharks, is beginning to offset whatever value a whale shark might have dead. And sharks, Tommy Rumingasau, the president of Palau, values the sharks that live in the Pacific around his little island country at worth more than $1 million a shark alive, because of crazy people such as I, who will pay big bucks to go and look at sharks and have sharks look at me. And it's a prosperity that is real, measurable, bankable. There's that other value, though, that the value of sharks is carbon-based units, part of the cycle of life. If we take all of the sharks out of the ocean, we've already taken 90% of most of the big ones. It's changing the chemistry of our life support system. It's not just the sharks, it's all those other living carbon-based units that are swimming in the ocean that are altering the oxygen cycle. The dead zones in the ocean, the low oxygen, deoxygenation of the ocean is making scientific headlines. It hasn't reached Wall Street Journal yet. But as soon as people understand our impact on the basis of life itself, we put a value on that, and we realize that our existence, which underpins our prosperity, and whatever you care about, first you have to breathe. And you have to have a place. You have to have food. You have to have enough. We're squandering the assets right now. We need to do a lot better about accounting for the value, not just the bankable value in terms of our current way of accounting, but to understand each of us has an opportunity to make a difference with the way we live our lives. And you have an impact on the company or the country, wherever you live. You have a voice and a chance, but even by demonstrating through your personal choices, times 7 billion, really stack up amount. But we've had this ethic of taking. We have to now give back.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time for other questions, but maybe we'll just take one more question. I know that there's a lot of burning questions out there.
I'm glad I don't have to choose.
I'm not the one with the wireless microphone. Can we choose someone? Yeah, please.
Yay, thank you. So you said in order to have hope we must care, and to care we must know. So
right
knowing ultimately brings people into the ocean.
Yes.
Yes, but then I want to know your view on how do you make the balance? You know, every time I go diving, I know I'm changing the environment, and you know the boat's taking us out there, the engine noises is affecting the fish living underwater. Just by shining a light on the corals, you know, we're affecting the fish behavior, and not to mention, you know, the crowdedness. So how do you balance the need for or the thirst of people who want to know versus the protection? I mean, mandatory holiday, or like closing of reefs or limiting the number of people. I mean, yeah, what's your view on that?
we can see it for the planet as a whole, that there's a carrying capacity to a coral reef. In the Galapagos Islands, they've done a pretty good job of saying, here's this area where tourists can go, divers can go, and the rest of it will keep intact. So there are trails that you can go on, but you don't go off the trails, but you can still engage the wildlife and they pace it so that you're not just bumping into people everywhere. I mean, again, it's quality versus quantity. Unfortunately, in the Galapagos Islands, the ethic for the ocean is not matched what they do for the land, where 97% of the land is kept in a more or less natural state, but and 3% is where they have streets and buildings and hotels and things. The ocean, it's just reversed. They only protect about 3% that is safe for the sea cucumbers and the lobsters and the endemic grouper and the other creatures who live there. The rest of it, they started a habit that is under consideration right now of allowing local fishermen, and that has expanded to be international fishing, so the market for sea cucumbers is not local, it's China. The market for tuna is partly local, but it goes to the United States, it goes all over the world. So, you know, it's knowing, again, that will change the way we behave. And I would trade off a little crowding in order to get people to see what's there if they go back and tell somebody else what it's like down there. I have a theme about kids. No child left dry is a good place to start in terms of getting an increased appreciation for the ocean. You gotta go, you know, I love being associated with the National Geographic, where they have had this theme for years of a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I love words. I write, you know, a lot. And I've been inspired by poetry, by stories, by scientific articles, you know. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and experience has got to be worth 1,000 pictures. We need to get people out into the ocean, into the forests, into the deserts, into the mountains, and to insist that we do it with respect. That's the way that will help solve the problem of respect the other divers. Give them a chance to see that beautiful anemone crowded with clownfish. And, you know, the joy of sharing the view. I really long for the day when we can have little submarines that can take any of you, all of you, to go and see even 1,000 feet, let alone 1,000 meters or 11,000 meters, what the planet, what it's like down there. It really is beautiful. I want to share that view. Astronauts come back from high in the sky, and they want to share the view. They tell people, I want you to see what I just seen. Now, they don't come back and just say, boring, or you don't want to know, it's nothing. Astronauts come back inspired to tell us what they see. Divers come back and inspired to share their images, their experiences. If you go with the attitude of respect and wanting to explore, that will help solve the problem that you've identified of worrying about the impact that you have when you go to these wild places. Knowing, again, is the key to, like, a bright light in the deep sea can blind the creatures that are there, or certainly upset them. So we're now using red lights to see. Low light level cameras. We have the technology to see the way deep sea fish see, to enhance the ambient light, even the light of bioluminescence, to be able to kind of be a creature of the deep sea because of our ability to harness the technology that gives us that added, enhanced gift of vision, of sound, of being able, we haven't quite figured out how to feel what a fish feels because it has this lateral line down the side, or to know what an electrical field feels like if you're a shark. They have this enhanced capacity, but knowing that they have it and respecting that they have it, and maybe learning how does a tuna fish power its way through the ocean by swishing its big tail back and forth, capturing 97% of the energy, and we can only hope to achieve maybe 50 or 60% with the most ingenious methods of propulsion maybe we can learn from them. Maybe we can enhance our existence, our lives, if we don't kill them all. So we need to, I think your question is a really key one. How do we continue to learn from the natural systems without destroying what's there?
Yes.
And I think the key is do unto fish as you would have them do unto you. Or a squid or
That's
an
another
orway.
quote. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Because of limitations of time, we can't take any more questions, but I'm sure, Dr. Sylvia Earle will be staying around a little bit for a couple of minutes to shake some hands, take some photos. I
And I'll be
definitely
back.
want a photo.
I'll be back.
Or she will be back for sure. And yes, Dr. Sylvia Earle talks about her love for poetry and words. I know that if you Google quotes from Dr. Sylvia Earle, you will find many, many wonderful quotes out there. No blue, no green, no water, no life. Am I right?
That's right. It's just the truth.
So please join me in thanking Dr. Sylvia Earle for coming here.